What is going down, faithful? We are back, State of the Franchise, on Fridays now with Jason Aponte. I don't know about you, Jason. The offseason fatigue is already setting in, but we got some other fatigues to talk about as well, and we'll get into it all right after this. Let's go. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now. Mr. Aponte, how are we doing on this beautiful Friday afternoon?
Amazing. And I think we should update people on the schedule of what's going to happen with State of the Franchise during the offseason. So I'll let you make that announcement, because you're the big guy.
Oh, stop it. So Jason and I, we will be doing State of the Franchise every Friday during the offseason. That way we can kind of react to all the shenanigans that happen throughout the week. And we will be able to kind of give our takes kind of at the end of the week and recap as we head into the weekend. And we got some shenanigans this week, Jason.
I swear to God, the next person that says shenanigans, I'm going to pistol whip.
Oh. So, I mean, there's multiple places that we could start with shenanigans, but it is the off season, so we know what it is. Before we get into the shenanigans, smash that like button. Make sure you're subbing to both channels, and we're going to get this thing cooking. I want to ask you first, because like we said, there's actually a bunch of shenanigans to talk about. We did get, I don't even know if it's a trade rumor, but it got to the point where we have Albert Breer coming out today to discuss that Debo Samuel will not get traded by the San Francisco 49ers and especially to the Patriots. What did you take of that whole situation? And is this just peak offseason mode?
We're in peak offseason mode at this point. I mean, when you listen to the report, the Patriots are sniffing around offering a deal. That should let you know, right? Like sniffing around offering a deal.
In quotes,
right?
sniffing around.
Like lets you know that they're just sitting there saying, hey, I would like it if Debo Samuel was a part of my team. Now let's live in the real world. Let's live in the world that actually happens and exists, not fantasy football land, not Madden land. The 49ers are not moving Debo Samuel. They're in the middle of a Super Bowl window in which they have to find a way to get over that hump. You don't get over that hump by trading an all-pro player like Debo Samuel. And then when you get into the actual logistics of the cap, which you don't have to be a cap specialist to understand why this deal wouldn't make any sense, $19 million in dead money when the 49ers are trying to find a way to make more cap space so they can re-sign their studs, bring in people in free agency, re-sign their draft class, sign guys that they're about to draft. It's peak off season, and all you have to do is read the way the report comes out. The Patriots are sniffing around offering a deal. That means I would love if Debo Samuel was here, and we're just talking about wishing that he would be here. I took nothing of it. There was never any reason for anybody to get upset in any way.
Absolutely. And it's like, I think we can, at this stage in the game, if Debo Samuel were to actually get traded from the San Francisco 49ers, that would have happened last year. That would have happened after his phenomenal season where he went crazy rushing and catching when he hadn't been signed yet. And he was actively, in discussions with potential other teams to get traded at his peak value. Now you sign him to the big time contract. And like you alluded to, there's cap ramifications that come along with it. And then it's like he had a good year, didn't have as great of a year as he did the year prior. It's like it just feels like that time has come and it has passed. And the 49ers, obviously had the little drama last year and they talked to other teams like the Jets per reports and things like that and threw some deals around. But then they didn't get enough to move Debo. Why would they move him now and just take on this massive cap hit? So again, off-season time. It's great for us content creators because it gives us something to talk about. It gives us
Mm-hmm.
something to spin off of and be like, "This is a dumb report.
Mm-hmm.
Who dare say such a thing?" But again, the Patriots would love to have Debo Samuel, but they're not going to get Debo
30
Samuel.
other teams, including the Patriots, would love to have Debo Samuel. That's why everybody in the league is trying to find a Debo Samuel.
Absolutely. So it's our first one of the year. It really didn't take long. Even if it had zero legs to begin with, still got us talking about it. The smoke chasers are back in action. Brought the tinfoil hat back out. Had to dust it off the shelf.
Oh, I got something. I got
It's
something for the tinfoil.
Oh, what you got?
I mean, we'll get to it once you bring it up. I'll
Okay.
bring up my. We're gonna get to it. It's one of the big topics, but I have a tinfoil theory for it.
Okay. And maybe it is this next topic that we can talk about. Maybe it has to do with Trey Lance. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yep.
Because, again, it's the off season, and what do we talk about in the off season? I mean, Jason and I, we do our shows every Wednesday during the season. At a certain point, we refuse to talk about the quarterback
Mm-hmm.
or speculation
Mm-hmm.
surrounding the quarterback, because we're like, this is off season talk. We'll
Mm-hmm.
fill our quota of quarterback talk in the off season, and it is time, and it has come. And as we know, Trey Lance went on to, I think it was like a podcast. It was like this new platform. I had
Quincy
never come,
Avery.
I'd never come across before, with Quincy Avery, and Quincy had asked Trey Lance about arm fatigue and Titans rumors. Did you happen to hear that? And what was how would you recap what Trey Lance said about those two particular topics?
I did listen to it, and I do think that I owe certain people an apology. Mike Silver and others who were talking about arm fatigue. My issue now with them was less about what they're reporting and leaving out the context of why Trey Lance had arm fatigue. And I think that's really the big part that you should walk away with this is that they didn't get it right. I mean, they didn't get it wrong when it comes to the arm fatigue thing, right? But what happens is when you talk about in the context of why Trey Lance is saying, I threw for 20 months straight, and don't get it twisted. No quarterback throws for 20 months straight. None of them, right? Like once they're done with the season, they go and they have their vacation and then they get back to it. Trey Lance was working so hard that eventually his arm gave out. And I don't think that there's any quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter, that their arm wouldn't be a little bit tired after throwing for 20 months. Yeah, I mean, man, Jesus' arm might get a little tired, I don't know. So that's the first part. The second part, when you and yes, I did listen to it, and this is where my tinfoil hat thing comes into, right? Kind of funny right now that the 49ers are allowing Trey Lance to be front and center with almost every single microphone that will allow him in front of it. He was all over Media Row. He's doing this Quincy Avery thing.
Mm-hmm.
Put the tinfoil hat on with me real quick, Brad, just so I can go through this real fast if you have it. Real quick. Brock Purdy has a timeline, the 22nd. We're 5 days away from his surgery. We're 5 days away from learning like what's going to be the severity of this. Doesn't it feel like the 49ers are conditioning, this is offseason, conditioning Trey Lance to be in front of the cameras, answer the questions, talk to the media? Are the 49ers bracing for something that is a little bit longer than the extended 6 months? Like, just stay with me real quick.
I see where the tinfoil. I definitely need the tinfoil hat right now to process this.
6 months, 6 months, right? Puts him in the third preseason game. That means Trey Lance will have OTAs, minicamp, and an entire training camp to himself, taking quarterback one reps with Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, something like that, behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it feel like the 49ers are bracing for something that's a little bit more pessimistic than the initial optimistic timeline, right? We don't live in a perfect world, Brad. And if we lived in a perfect world, I'd be the person that was celebrating a second baby with Rihanna. I'd be the person that was, front row center at the Super Bowl. We don't live in a perfect world. So a perfect world scenario puts him online for August 22nd.
Yeah.
That's with no sort of setbacks, anything like that. It just feels weird to me that the 49ers are kind of putting Trey Lance front and center. The only other backup quarterback that I've seen take this many questions was Trey Lance, and it almost just feels like they're just trying to get him ready for something that is starting to feel more and more like something that they can't put a finger on, Brad. And I'll let you say that.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the theory. I'm a big fan of all these types of theories, especially in the off season. And to quickly addressing like the timeline with Brock Purdy, we really don't know, and we're going to find out in February 22nd is when Brock Purdy will have the surgery, and we are going to find out if it is indeed going to be an internal brace or if it's going to be. I think they said like a hybrid surgery, which is
So,
effectively Tommy John, right?
so look, right. So here's the thing. And I see a comment. They said 6 months and then 100% playing. Well, the 49ers have been notoriously terrible in getting the injury timelines correct. And I'm not even talking about like, oh, they're here and they're missed. No, they've been terrible when it comes to that. Okay. I think that is the most optimistic timeline. That is perfect world, no setbacks. But we all know that there is chances for other things. The surgeon can get in
Trey
there.
Lance had a setback with his surgery.
And he spoke about that in the same interview, saying that it was absolutely a setback.
Mhm.
My thing is the 49ers are allowing Trey Lance to talk and talk and talk and talk because they want to get him used to it so he can get ready for what may be in front of him. But 6 months is a perfect world scenario. And what the 49ers say and what actually happens, especially when it comes to injuries, is something that I don't think you should take with a grain of salt, but isn't exactly the Bible. And that's more than anything. Like we've heard people, we've heard about timelines. Well, this guy will be back. You know what? Then suffered a setback. Three months later, they're back. Like there's a long track record of the 49ers using the most optimistic timeline. And now we're using the most optimistic timeline for something that we don't know yet. I mean, best case scenario, I would love that. I would love for this to be him come back, no problems after 3 months, build up your strength. I think all of that is great. I'm rooting for that. I am rooting for that. But that doesn't mean that that's something you necessarily can set your watch to. And the 49ers have to put out every single contingency plan to make sure they're insulated as a quarterback in the quarterback room. And for me to just take what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan say about an injury at face value and just say, here we go, like we're rolling with this, it ignores all of the past things that have been said about injuries that have been absolutely wrong.
And when it comes down to it, like we don't know, right? Like we're only going to figure it out when they get into the elbow and they understand how severe it is, if it's easily repairable, or if that thing got blown to smithereens and it's time to, from my understanding of Tommy John, like you're pulling from like a cadaver or like you're effectively remaking the UCL opposed to repairing it.
Is this
right?
the Last of Us, right? Like you're taking something from a dead person and putting it on a person. Like this doesn't seem safe now at this point. No, but
it's
no,
apocalyptic at this point.
But that's a great way to explain it. And again, like right now, the idea is that there's going to be a brace put in, but that doesn't mean that when they get in there, they realize, oh man, you know what? This isn't going to work, right? And there may be something else. Always hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And that is life advice. Forget the quarterback room.
Right, 100%. So the bottom line is the optimistic output has been 6 months. That's the hope, that's the prayer, that's the dream. We don't know. My tinfoil hat take on what you were saying about the 49ers pushing Trey Lance out in front, I would say that I don't think it's necessarily the San Francisco 49ers pushing Trey Lance. I think it's Trey Lance pushing Trey Lance. I think we haven't heard from Trey Lance in a long time. When you think of the Rich Eisen show, he's representing himself and a brand, Sleep Train, like he's out, or it's not Sleep Train, Sleep Number, excuse me. Let me get the advertisements right. So I look at that more as individual branding opposed to team branding. When I see Trey Lance going on with his quarterback coach, I see that as individual branding opposed to team. Like if he was on with Greg Papa, if he was on with Matt Mayoko, someone like that, then I'm definitely more inclined to be like, oh, tinfoil hat, like they're trying to get a message out. But I look at it, like obviously I had Brandon on Ayuk recently. That's just
Did you?
Brandon, coming on and talking. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not necessarily the team telling him to come on and talk.
Mhm.
So I think, trying to, sift through the tinfoil hat, I see where you are able to pull and like kind of rationalize that. But I do think it probably is more on Trey Lance's individual branding opposed to team branding. But I love the theory. I think it's phenomenal.
Make sure you guys write this down and make sure you guys clip this. Brad Graham and Jason Aponte disagreed on the state of the franchise about what is happening.
The first time?
It might be. It might be. I thought I had a theory that was just gonna, set like blow your mind to the point where you were like, oh my God, it makes sense. But you literally just shot it down with your own very well thought out theory. This is why people tune into you, Brad. No, I do agree with that as well too, right? Like I do think it is a bit of Trey making sure that you remember I am very well media trained. I am going to say the right things. I don't think anybody who even the biggest Trey Lance doubter, I don't think anybody who was one of those guys has a problem with the way that Trey carries himself. I think that's one thing that we can set our watch to. We can look at him and say, he is wise beyond his years. He looks like he's been here before. And that's half the battle. That is half the battle, man. Guys can have success on the field and completely bungle it in the media. And when things go,
who's the defensive end for the Giants? Kayvon Thibodeau.
So Thibodeau's a great player. He's going to be a great player. But saying I don't know who Jeff Saturday is, I don't know who Joe Staley is, bro. Like
doing the Snow Angels next to
right next to Nick Foles.
And then not like having the wherewithal to be like, yeah, probably, at least from a media perspective, even if he didn't mean it, right? From a PR perspective, yeah, it probably wasn't the best look. I apologize. He's like, he doubled down. He said, nope. Who's he? I don't care.
You don't learn about people's characters when things are going well. Right. You learn about people's characters when things are going wrong. And they have to stand there in the box and answer questions about why things aren't happening. After week 1 in Chicago, Trey stood up and he said, I've got to do better. I've got to do better. He talked about himself. Never once was it we. Obviously it's a team sport, but if you're the quarterback and you're the face of the franchise, you have to be able to say those things. Nobody learns anything from you when you're up. They learn from you when you're down. Nobody has anything bad to say when they're winning, but when they're losing, if you are still that same person who was dismissive of this and this and this because you were winning, it's going to come through. And I do think that is one thing that Trey Lance was doing, was to remind people, I'm very well spoken. I will be the face of your franchise if push comes to shove, which I don't want to see that happen. But remember who I am as a person. Remember why people were so high on me. Remember why people thought, this and that about how smart I was, how I carry myself. All of those things are true, Brad. So I think you hit the nail on the head.
And to Trey Lance's credit, he's not going to be a distraction while he's on injured reserve and go on his quarterback coach's podcast or whatever it is and say all this stuff mid-season. Like, I think the timing is proper. It's accurate. He gets to address these narratives that have been spinning and spinning and spinning for months and months and months, years even, right? We've been talking about arm fatigue for a long time. Like, we even turned it into a running joke. So I think you're – yeah, I think you're that's right. He did. I forgot about that. But I think, to your point, like Trey Lance, who was it? Was it John Chapman? I think he put out something that like
he's still younger than like 8 of the 10 quarterbacks that are coming out this year. I mean, Stetson Bennett don't count. Stetson Bennett is closer to Tom Brady than he is, Trey Lance. Like Stetson Bennett is the guy from unnecessary
He's on
roughness.
Brandon Whedon's level, like
Right.
coming into the league at like 30 years old.
Stetson Bennett is Scott Bakula in Necessary Roughness, the 40-year-old guy who was asked to come back to quarterback. Like that's not
Oh
that
my
don't count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. But still, to the point is like Trey Lance, and we knew this, man. Like he had so much talent, so much upside. It's just there's a lot of development there. He is mature, but he's still young at the same time. You know what I mean? So it's like I totally I get what he's doing. You know, set the record straight. And I think to your point too, like kind of circling back to the Mike Silver, Colin Cowherd thing, I think we even talked about it and tried to like rationalize the arm fatigue. Because, you know, I tried to connect it to like if anyone has ever lifted weights in their life, it didn't matter if I had been training for football for 6 consecutive years, working out 3 to 4 times a week. I go into the gym, I hit it hard. I'm going to be sore. I'm going to have a level of fatigue. That's what we were talking about, right? It's like if you're throwing the ball as much as Trey Lance is, and also on top of throwing the ball, you're tweaking mechanics, which means you're tweaking angles, you're tweaking potential ability
Release.
to engage different muscle groups or like smaller different muscles or tendons than maybe you have muscle memory that you've relied on your whole life. And opening your shoulder up more could definitely make your shoulder more sore. We rationalize that, but remember, these guys were on their platforms talking as if it was almost like a trait. Like he has arm fatigue. It's just
Right.
something he's going to have to deal with
Right.
for the entirety of his career. And this is why he won't be good. Like that's where I personally had the problem with the reports. I could rationalize arm fatigue. I couldn't rationalize how they were painting it and spinning it as a negative trait that is why he won't be successful in this league. I didn't like that part of it.
I stood right next to Mike Silver, and I should have asked him why he blocked me and probably spoken to him. I would have gotten a really good response when it came to that. But I do think that that's exactly it. Why leave out the context as to why the arm fatigue has happened and paint it as some sort of doomsday, doom and gloom? This kid is never going to be anything.
Jason, we know why,
Yes.
but you know, go off, you can do what you got to do, sell what you got to sell, and make your money.
That's what I mean. It's like, look, I want to apologize to you for completely dismissing what you're saying, because I was just like, man, 21-year-old kid, man, you know, like I was 21. I would go hoop for 6 hours in 100-degree weather and then come right back home and then go right back out at night and keep hooping. You know, you have this stamina, all of those things. I want to apologize for dismissing it. But I do think you leaving out the context and you painting it as some sort of doom and gloom, doomsday trait that Trey Lance is going to have for the rest of the time was intentional. And I do think that that's absolutely why we're upset with them right now. So I want to apologize for dismissing, but I don't apologize for the way that you presented this. And I do think that that is the real reason that people shouldn't necessarily go on this apology tour to the both of them. And also, Colin Cowherd sat there with a smile on his face when he was giving out this news. You know why? Because he wanted it to be true, and he wanted Trey to fail, and he wanted, and you know, again, we know why, but he wanted Trey to fail. He wanted him to be painted in this light, because he literally went from, they made the right pick, I love the guy, he was at my house, to, oh, I can't throw the ball, oh, his arm fatigue. You know why? You know why. But instead of giving context and saying, well, he's thrown the ball for 20 straight months, his arm is a little fatigued. If they would have painted it like that, nobody in 49ers Twitter would have batted an eye at it, but they didn't. No. And they painted it as the kid can't throw the football. And if he does try to throw the football, he's going to have to sit out for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's the biggest problem.
And I feel like that's why you have journalists, right, to paint the full picture and not spin it. I feel like that's more of like a content creator's job, right? Like to like take something,
but be
pick
clear.
a side of it,
be
right?
Clear.
Like
they're content creators. They just get Colin Cowherd just makes $15 million to create content like a year, right? Like we have to scrap. We have to scrap and build our credibility from little by little, like to be able to even make the smallest of money to do this, right? There's no consequence. He's under a contract. He gets to do whatever he wants. And people don't tune into Colin Cowherd and others for analysis. They tune
Right.
into them to be entertained. Now,
Yes.
look, I get that. And I do not downplay people who are entertaining because you need to be entertained. Personally, myself, I would like to be known as someone who is an analyst while being entertaining. Someone who can be swayed with new information, someone who's allowed to change their opinion, someone who can look themselves in the face and say, I was wrong while being entertaining. When you can throw out whatever it is that you want, the problem is that this has opened up a way for people to just say, well, that was just my opinion. But you know what, Brad? Opinions are wrong every fucking day. If I told you that I thought Jared Goff was better than Justin Herbert, that's an opinion. But it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's 100% false. Opinions are wrong every single day. But opinions over analysis is what is more entertaining. I will sacrifice myself being someone who just wants to give out whatever hot take at the moment. And I might be boring because I want to say, listen, I need to see more before I can make a decision. I'm good with that. I know where I stand. But opinions are wrong every single day. And I'm tired of people hiding behind shit takes and just saying, well, that's my opinion. Your opinion's wrong and it's a bad take. Both can be true. 100%.
Your opinion sucks, man.
Your opinion was bad. Your opinion sucks, man. That's it.
Well, what's the saying? Opinions are like, a-holes. Everyone's got one.
I'm all cursing on your platform and everything.
Yeah.
But you're good. We get a few, curses. We're good or whatever. But it's just
we get a few allotments. We don't get unmonetized for a couple here or there. I'm just tired
of people. I'm just tired of people who use a way to give out something that is completely misinformed, wrong. And then when he's called out about it, and this is not just Colin Cowherd, it's many people say, well, that was just my opinion. Well, your opinion shit, and it was wrong. So I don't care. Like everyone's entitled to their opinion, but do not sit here and tell me that opinions can't be wrong. Opinions are wrong every single day. My goodness.
100%. So it's funny because we talked about it so much in the offseason. Trey Lance goes on and says, yeah, I did. My arm was tired. I threw for 20 months straight. That was tiring. And makes a lot of sense, right? When you do something that repetitively over and over again, that's physically demanding like that, that's going to take its toll. We got a little news to come out. Eric Bieniemy named Commanders offensive coordinator, which takes Anthony Lynn's hat off out of the mix, because Anthony Lynn did interview as for this position as well. So that does appear Anthony Lynn is staying.
Fine. Well, and congratulations, Eric Bieniemy. And this is this is completely overdue. Again, man, I really don't understand why. I mean, the guy is at the forefront of an offense that just won a Super Bowl, that is perennially in the AFC Championship game, and now finally, I don't know why this has been happening. Please do not give me that he interviews bad. If he interviews bad, then why does he get interviews every single year? None of that shit ever made sense to me. None of it ever made sense to me. But I'm happy for Eric. But now, God help you and that franchise that you're walking into now at this point, because it's a mess. Bring your broom. It's a mess.
Hey, it's a mess now, but once Jeff Bezos steps in and takes over, it could flip. We could have a what is it, like Joe Lacob Warriors type flip, where just ownership, especially an ownership with deep pockets and is willing to spend, could flip an organization on its head. We know why the Washington Commanders are trash. It's because their owner is trash, and it just seeps and permeates throughout the organization. Get him out of there. Get in Bezos, and I bet things will turn around pretty quickly. But I am too happy. How do you say his name? Bieniemy. I remember we saw Bieniemy at the Combine last year, and that dude had a presence. He
Oh
had a
yeah.
squad. He had like this entourage. I remember like we were on the field, right? And all the players were coming off the field to go say what's up
Yeah.
to Eric Bieniemy. And I'm watching the whole thing and I'm like, no other coach was down there having that face to face. Like,
Yeah.
I was a big Rashad White guy, and Rashad White and them are chopping it up. I remember I got a video of it. I'm like, that's my running back.
Right.
Don't you dare go to the Chiefs. But like you could feel the respect.
Right.
Like we were around him
Mhm.
and like in real life, and you could see in an NFL environment where it's just NFL people, like he even had a presence there. So that's why like getting like not knowing a whole lot about him and then being able to like be 2 feet away from him and like see the respect he got from all the other coaches and the players. And it was like, it wasn't adding up. Like, why
Yeah.
isn't he getting a shot? But at least now, I mean, people will look at it, oh, it's a lateral move. He's going from offensive coordinator. We know Andy Reid
No.
calls all the
100%.
plays, and it's his offense.
Yeah.
Now Eric is going to be able to go to the Commanders with what's his name? What's their head coach's name?
Ron Rivera.
Ron Rivera, who's a defensive-minded head coach, right? And so he'll be able to be like the head coach of the offense. So I like that move. It's a poverty franchise, but hopefully not for too long.
Oh, buy your Antonio Gibson stonks.
Oh, please.
Please.
I need it. I fell down the rabbit hole, man, and I spent a premium for Antonio Gibson before last season. And
yeah, but you know what though? This year I think that because he slid so far, the two people that I felt like slid so far that ended up, giving you return on investment in drafts, Antonio Gibson, because obviously the unfortunate thing that happened to Brian Robinson, and then he took over when JD McKissick got injured in the passing role. But Josh Jacobs, I mean, nobody wanted to hit hands on Josh Jacobs either.
I traded Josh Jacobs.
If you traded for Josh Jacobs, or if you drafted Josh Jacobs in the 7th round, if you drafted him in the 7th round, you won your league. You won your league probably.
100%. Josh Jacobs was killing it this year. It's like it's trying to find that perfect timing, right? Of when the value dips, because there's ebbs and flows, right? So you want to buy, and that's what I'm like trying to keep reminding myself: stop buying at a premium. Try to ride the ebbs and flows, and try to buy at the lowest value when they're about to peak. So it's still a process.
Brad,
I get excited sometimes. I'm like, ooh, I see it, I like it. I think they're gonna use it, and then they're like, nope, we're not gonna do that. And I was
Brad,
like, oh,
the streets, aka the chat, want us to predict where James Garoppolo is going to be playing football next season.
Okay, we could do that.
Yeah.
How about you? Let's before we do that though, we got one.
Take our super chat.
Tia says, I always felt that Coward and Silver has been on a hating on Trey Lance train since the summertime. Every report was negative. Nothing was positive. He's not wrong.
He's not. And again, Tia, if they present these things that are going on in the simplest of terms, like, his arm is fatigued because he threw for 20 months, it wouldn't come off like that. But it didn't, right? Like it came off like, I am trying to scare 49ers fans, put doom and gloom and doomsday, traits out there. Like, again,
it was like counter hype. There's like so much hype about Trey. It was like, counter hype.
So like in a way where, again, being fair, being honest doesn't get you ratings, views, clicks. Being doom and gloom about somebody who is the quarterback of one of the premier franchises in the NFL is far more rewarding than talking about the truth. I mean, for God's sakes, what did Colin Cowherd say the other day? I don't know why Lamar Jackson doesn't go to Atlanta. I mean, they're getting Calvin Ridley back. What on earth are you talking about, blood? He's playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars next year if he plays at all. So again, you go to certain people and you go to them for their entertainment value. But if you're really going to learn something, it's not from Colin Cowherd, and it's not from a guy who's under Colin Cowherd's umbrella of podcast, The Volume Sports, Mike Silver. But that just goes to show you, literally the easiest thing to know was that Calvin Ridley was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. His rights were traded there, and now he's up for reinstatement. But again, goes to show you that when you try to dip your hand into too many things, when you try to know it all about everything, you will know nothing about anything. And that's my rant.
Yeah, and I think, as a content creator myself, it's, part of the thing that I have learned over the past couple years and continue to learn is people are going to go about their content however they want to go about their content. And they're going to do what they believe is best suited for them and what's going to make them successful, whether that's being someone who uh, antagonizes or is ultra positive, or they are counterintuitive to everything, like, or they find one lane and they stick to it. At the end of the day, like, you just pick and choose who you like and what you like, what's your vibe. And you have to understand that us as content creators, we're also we're marketing ourselves how we believe we should be marketed or feel we want to be marketed. So if you're constantly getting upset at someone for how they're continuing to talk about something, you might be feeding into what they're ultimately trying to accomplish. Because I go back to my days as a multimedia communications major at the Academy of Art University. We had this class where it was like a newsroom class. They were teaching you how to, become either a reporter, whatever, work as a producer. And we had the local producer from the local news station in San Francisco come in and talk to us. And the first thing she's like, the number one thing in news, if it bleeds, it leads. And I'm like, why is that? Because it creates a reaction, it creates an emotional response, and then that's, it creates that type of then, talking. So that you can rely to everything. And when you start to see that people are tend to be on the negative side of things, they understand that they've been able to trigger a certain thing, and that also continues to generate traction, conversation, engagement, etc. So that's my only advice. It's like, it's 2023. We don't need to get mad at these guys anymore. They're doing their job, and their job is to get people to click, like, or click, link, talk, like, us talking about it. They're successful, and that's all right.
I'm sorry, I don't want to keep like potted on him, but he said something the other day about how he's helped change the way sports media has gone by doing instant reactions and videos. And I was like,
Colin said
wait,
this?
yeah, I was like, wait a minute, blood. You mean YouTube? You mean the things that we've been doing? Like, what is this blood waffling about, man?
YouTube's
Like,
been
what are you
around
talking?
for a long time.
What is blood waffling about is the funniest part of this. It's just like, what are you talking about, dog? I was like, we're the ones, we do instant reactions every single week. We
He's
do all
acting
of this
like
stuff.
he created the podcast game.
He created YouTube now all of a sudden. Like, good God, man. Like, get off of your high horse and just stop being dumb. Christ almighty.
Oh, it's good stuff, man.
But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's where I was going. It
Yep.
slipped my mind.
I got you.
So I'll ask you.
Yeah.
Where do you predict Jimmy Garoppolo lands next season?
Jimmy Garoppolo is a primetime face, primetime name. He doesn't belong in some place like Tennessee. He doesn't belong in some place like whatever, Carolina. What are we doing here? You send Jimmy Garoppolo and you sign him to the Las Vegas Raiders, where he can link with Josh McDaniels and he can run the offense that Josh McDaniels and the Patriots envisioned for him when they thought he was going to take over for Tom Brady. It's glove in hand fit at this point right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, if you're watching, buddy, you are a Las Vegas Raider. You will be throwing footballs to Devontae Adams. Congratulations, pal. Pair him up with that running back. Pair him up with that offensive line. Give him that wide receiver. Maybe the defense will improve. But Josh McDaniels is going to run the offense that he always had in mind for Jimmy Garoppolo when he was over there. And now have Jimmy Garoppolo under center. It makes too much sense. And he belongs in a place where the lights are the brightest, where he can, win a football game, get out of the stadium and go right to the strip and just go cause havoc, man. It works too much. Jimmy Garoppolo, you are a Las Vegas Raider.
No Aaron Rodgers to the Raiders to go team up with
Aaron,
Devontae Adams.
Aaron Rodgers, you are a New York Jet. You are a New York Jet. You are going to be playing in MetLife Stadium, buddy, and the Jets fans are going to be super excited. Sounds to me like he wants to follow in the footsteps of one Brett Favre. It is so funny how things work. I want to retire. I'm going to be back. I'm going to retire. I'm going to be back. Literally just like them. The only thing that he hasn't done that Brett Favre did was go to Minnesota first before the Jets. But Aaron Rodgers, you are a New York Jet, pal.
They hired Nathaniel Hackett, his former OC, right?
And they're a quarterback away. Garrett Wilson.
Away.
And it makes too much sense. Like right now, you put Aaron Rodgers
media market.
You put Aaron Rodgers in that offense with LaFleur and Nathaniel. Oh no, Nathaniel Hackett. I'm sorry, right? Because he wasn't yet. Yeah. Nathaniel Hackett. It just makes too much sense. Zach Wilson's cooked. Don't even ask about Zach Wilson. I hate to write people's stories, but that man's story is a horror story written by Stephen King. It's over. It's done. Like that man is not good at football, and I think we got too enamored with the throws against air, and we didn't really evaluate him properly.
Yeah, no, his stuff. It's like the Sam Darnold stuff. It's between the ears. Like it's we say they got that dog in them. I don't think there's a dog to be seen. And we could see that after just his rookie year. I think there was issues within the building about his confidence levels and is he really the guy after they, took him number 2 overall? So Jason's picking the Raiders, which I agree. That's a good fit. And it makes a lot of sense. McDaniels is there. And it's going to be interesting to see if they do re-sign Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs could get potentially
He'll be back.
From someone else. It'll be interesting to see.
He'll be back. Usually you don't pay running backs. Usually you don't, but This is the Las Vegas Raiders we're talking about. And they are going to – wouldn't be shocked if Josh Jacobs has a down year off of a huge payday. It just fits. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. So I could definitely see that. I could definitely see Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders. Other ones that Vish posted a video of what was it? All these superstars talking about where they think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play, and at the very end, they asked the question to George Kittle. And George Kittle, without hesitation, says, Miami. He's going to Miami.
That makes sense, too. That absolutely makes sense. I mean, here's the thing, though. Tua's asked to do a lot of the things that Jimmy was asked to do, right, in the offense. And look, and speaking of Miami, man, now I get to look into this. I just got my hands on this book or whatever, the offensive manual for the Miami Dolphins, littered with, literally everything. So now I can figure out what the hell the Dolphins ran. So I'll get to look into it a little bit more. But when you think about how fast Waddle and Hill are, is it just going to be these quick throws? Will Jimmy be able to hit these throws down the field, right? So I do see the fit. I just wonder if it'll actually work. So, I mean, I do think that's a good call. But I can't wait to dig into this. And a lot of my content, going forward is going to be, what I learned, with film about what the hell the Dolphins were running over there with Tua, because he's very similar to Jimmy in terms of just distribute the football, get it off fast and get it out quicker. I think Tua has a better arm downfield than Jimmy does, but they're asked to do the same things.
Yeah, no, I personally think, considering the situation, you have Bobby Slowick down there with the Texans. Of course, you have D'Amico Ryans. Davis Mills ain't it. They need someone to potentially fit in. So I think it's personally between the Raiders and the Texans, because you also, yes, you have the Josh McDaniels connection with the Raiders, but you also have the Nick Caserio connection, the guy who actually drafted Jimmy Garoppolo
for sure
in the building. And you have all this 49ers staff. They know Jimmy Garoppolo.
For sure.
And what do we know about anyone who's been around the Jimmy Garoppolo in person? They all love Jimmy Garoppolo. It doesn't matter what, and Josh 3567889 thinks on Twitter about Jimmy Garoppolo.
What's the username? Because I mean, I got what is it this whole offseason? I had Steven 49er fan 876482 saying you don't know shit about the Niners and you should jump off a building.
So it doesn't matter what any of these like nameless, faceless, no profile picture Twitter accounts think about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Mhm.
You talk to anyone who's been in that locker room with him, they only have positive things to say about him.
Mhm.
Maybe outside of Kyle Shanahan, but anyone else seems to really like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh,
So
sorry. Oh, sorry. Can I laugh real quick? Because I'm so
yes,
glad that you brought that up. Kyle is sick of this shit, man.
oh
It's like,
yeah,
all right, there's no chance. There's no chance he's coming back. I'm done with it. Like, literally, don't ask me again or I'll rip your face off. Literally.
he's been waiting for this moment since 2020, man. Like he's been trying to lose Jimmy for the longest time and
Oh,
just can't get away from him.
oh my
Just
God.
can't get away from him.
I'm so
Finally
glad
did.
you brought that up because because literally, I forget who it was. Somebody tweeted something about the offense runs through Jimmy Garoppolo, and I was just like, okay, man, this is why I've been off Twitter because people are just insane.
That's why
And
I'm off
someone
Twitter.
somebody posted the clip of him saying, "Is there any scenario in which you see Jimmy?" He's like, "No, none, absolutely not." And the guy and he tried to like re-up. He was like, "No, I got you." He was like, "No." He was just like,
Kyle has been trying everything in his power since 20 what was it?
"Oh my
Miami
God."
Dolphins week 5 2020. It was
Oh,
they were done. The
my
relationship was over
my
and they
stomach hurts from
basically
laughing.
have had a band-aid on it since then and miraculously stuck around for 2 more years after that.
Basically,
But it's
basically,
over, man.
the best way to put it, Brad, is Jimmy Garoppolo stuck around for the kids, right? It's a relationship that you knew was over, but the kids need you to be in the house. So basically, Jimmy Garoppolo slept on the couch while Kyle Shanahan slept in the master bedroom. He would look, you go to the family functions, you smile, you say everything that's nice, you go to the kids' parties, everybody thinks everything's on the up and
You
up.
collect half at the beginning of the month for rent, like
That's
you
it.
get a couple bills for groceries,
That's it.
but
And
sleeping
at
on the
the end of the
couch.
night, Kyle Shanahan says good night, goes into the bedroom to sleep on the king size bed, and Jimmy Garoppolo sleeps on the fold out couch. Literally, the only reason I'm saying this is because I've got intimate knowledge on how these proceedings work. But it's just literally you're there for the kids at this point. You were there for the kids, which is the locker room. You're there for the kids. You're there to help them, and they can't see you go just yet. But you know what? You've already preconditioned them for 2 years. It's time for them to go now.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, that's not gonna work. So I think the Texans could work. I think one of the things that D'Amico Ryan said in his press conference was no energy vampires. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to speculate too far on what that means about the 49ers, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not an energy vampire, right? So he kind of fits that mold as someone who might not be the greatest quarterback in the world, but whenever you talk about the players, not Kyle, the
Mm-hmm.
players, they always talk about Jimmy made us better. He had a calm, cool presence in the locker room, in the huddle, and those are things that we don't hold in super high regards as people evaluating a ton. It's more of like, show me the production, show me the execution, not the suicide slants and things like that. And that's why Jimmy's such a polarizing player, because he does some things really well and some things make you want to pull your hair out at times, but there's more to playing quarterback than just throwing the football. So I could see Texans. I do see the Raiders also as a very good option. But it's going to be, he's going to have a market, man. He's going to get paid.
Yeah, he is.
He's going to get paid a lot of money. He's going to get another multi-year contract, and I don't know if he's going to be nowhere near Jalen Hurts. What are they talking about? Jalen Hurts
40,
getting
50
like,
M's, 40, 50 M's.
yeah,
That's it.
no,
I mean,
he's
that's,
probably
no.
he's
He's in that
he
30
might be at
range.
30 exactly. He
Yeah.
might be in that 30 range, like which
His market is a little bit more money now that Derek Carr has been released. If
yeah.
Derek Carr was a trading asset as opposed to being on the market to be signed, it's a little bit more muddy because if Derek Carr signs before Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to use that and say, well, wait a minute. Derek Carr got whatever it is that he got, but I've won, and I am blah, 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 in the locker room, I will be a much nicer face for your franchise. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. Like the Derek Carr thing throws a monkey wrench into Jimmy Garoppolo's plans because Derek Carr was supposed to be a tradable asset, not somebody who's visiting with the Jets today, probably going to be a New Orleans Saints, as New Orleans Saint there. I'll throw it out there. So yeah, I mean, and again, I just like the disrespect that Jimmy Garoppolo gets at times because people are like, how are you going to pay him 30? That's the going rate. The going rate. That is not necessarily indicative of what you believe in the quarterback. That's the going rate for a starting quarterback, which Jimmy Garoppolo is. Get your bag, Jimmy. Go do your thing. Like, that's what it is. It's not about where you value him as a player, but how much the position itself is valued across the league. And you get, as a starting quarterback, someone that can be relied on, $30 million at least. And Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get that. That's it.
It's the same conversation with Mike McGlinchey. Mike McGlinchey is probably going to sign in free agency because he's going to get about $15 million a year. And 49er fans are just like, how would you ever pay him that much? But again, offensive linemen don't grow on trees, and the position is not as good as you think it is. Because
is that what you want to pivot to now? Is that your way of pivoting to the Mike McGlinchey discourse?
Mike McGlinchey topics.
50 minutes in, Jason Aponte is going to take over the show now since we're going to talk about offensive linemen. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channels, hit that notification bell for when Brad and I go live.
Take the wheel, please.
Brad Graham.
Yes.
We are 5 days, 6 days. I don't know. It feels like 100 days into preseason. I'm tired. I've just been sleeping a lot. But I do want to talk about Mike McGlinchey because there is a internal discourse when you hear Matt Mayoko say, it feels like if Mike McGlinchey leaves, the answer is internal and it's inside the building. And I do want to point out to everybody before, Brad answers this question, the 49ers have a long track record of bringing in guys that will eventually take over, i.e. Aaron Banks, i.e. what I believe is going to happen with Jake Brendel and Nick Zakelj. Right? Nick Zakelj feels like he's just going to slide right into that center role. Everybody was worried about what happened with Lincoln Tomlinson. I don't think we can really get upset with what happened with Aaron Banks, and they had him sitting there for a year. So it seems like the Mike McGlinchey discourse has come down to how much money are you, person who doesn't have to pay him any of the money, how much money are you comfortable with the 49ers spending on Mike McGlinchey? I do want to preface this question before I ask it to Brad. Where are the clear upgrades in free agency? Because I don't know where they are.
There are none in free agency. Mike McGlinchey is right now the real best attainable tackle, right tackle specifically, that you can get. Everything else, there's a tier 2 drop off. And again, if you don't like Mike McGlinchey, what do you think a tier 2 below Mike McGlinchey is?
McGarry, guys that are out there right now, like that you're looking at, they're like, oh, just get this guy. And just because you're spending less money on a guy doesn't mean that you are going to get better bang for your buck.
Jawan Taylor out of the Jaguars. Like he's young.
And you're betting on upside. You're betting on him, as a younger guy, you're betting on all of those things. The question that I have for you, Brad Graham, what's the sweet spot for a Mike McGlinchey extension? And the second question,
49ers?
Yes.
Or for the market?
No, I mean, the market is the top end guys get 16 M's. 16 M's at offensive tackle, right? That's very fair. What's the sweet spot for Mike McGlinchey to come back? And what would you be comfortable, you yourself, guy who doesn't have to pay Mike McGlinchey with?
Right. It would probably be disrespectful to Mike McGlinchey, which is probably why Mike McGlinchey is not going to be returning with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think the San Francisco 49ers are going to. I think he will fetch, obviously starting with the market value around $15 million a year. I would like, what is he, 28 years old? Going to, I think, be 29, maybe in season next year. I don't know if I would want to really pay Mike 15. I love Mike, and I love Mike. But that's a lot of money, and I am admittedly an ageist around this time of the year, so I like to get younger and look for upside.
But younger, and when Matt Mayoko talks, I listen because one of the best in the business, but 2, he's not putting anything out there that he doesn't know, right?
Right.
Cole McKivitz is certainly going to be far cheaper,
Yes.
but does it make you feel better about the right tackle position? Having said that, the 49ers have had a great track record of getting things out of people that we haven't seen a lot of, i.e., Jake Brendel had 3 starts before he started 20 games this year. And he allowed, in 20 starts, 14 pressures and allowed 1 sack per PFF in Seattle, right? Sounds good for $1 million. But the whole, we're paying you $1 million. Are you going to get the return on investment? And that's the question I have.
So I think with Colton McKivitz, you're looking for a Tom Compton type level of performance when Tom Compton came in 2021. And, you know, what was Tom Compton doing really good at? He was really good in the run game. In pass protection, when left on an island, that's when you got a little bit more concerned. And I would have that same level of concern with Colton McKivitz. I think they're very similar in player. I think Colton McKivitz is definitely starting potential, but you're not talking about Colton McKivitz as a top tier starter. You're talking about him as probably bottom of the league in regards to starting tackles in the NFL until we see what we're going to get out of Colton McKivitz. Colton McKivitz to me is more of a guard. He has more of a guard body type. He has more of a guard technique. Even when he's out here in his pass set, he looks like a guard. You know, he doesn't have those big striding kick steps that tackles tend to have. But it doesn't mean he's not adequate. It doesn't mean he can't come in and start, but it's not going, and for all the crap that Mike McGlinchey gets, like, he's probably going to be, again, a tier below like what Mike McGlinchey is, at least until he proves that he is at that level or better. But because of that ability, I am okay with letting Mike go so he can go fetch 15 milli and we can turn to a Colton McKivitz, even though it might be a teardrop below. If I can take those funds and drop it into an elite edge or, maybe, sprinkle that money somewhere else, that's where I can rationalize letting Mike go. But I also understand I'm still drafting a tackle in the 3rd or 4th round, seeing if I can hit on one of these guys. I know I'm pretty sure Zach Tom was, I think, a 4th round pick for the Packers, and he performed really, really well. He was a guy that I came on to late in the process out of Wake Forest, but technically gifted. You can, if you get one of these technical guys that show the technique in college, I think they have a much easier way of transitioning into the NFL because they've already got the base fundamentals. It's just playing at that speed of the NFL and being able to match that type of physicality is typically where technical guys have to improve upon. But when you get the big maulers, sometimes they tend to struggle more because they aren't as technically sound, and they used to rely on their size to just move people out the way. But in the NFL, it's not that way. All these defensive tackles are loaded with a entire bag of moves and counter moves. So you have to be technically gifted, in my opinion, at this level. So long story short, I'm okay with Mike going, and because he's going to get, we're not going to be able to match him. I would say the 49ers would feel comfortable 10, 11 mil a year.
12 and a half is probably 12. That's where you max out.
Right. And that's not enough. And I would feel comfortable bringing him back at that, but that's where it gets to the point where it's a little too much. And you have to start looking towards the future, and it's not going to be free agency. So you got to keep going into the draft, and you got to look what you have on the roster. And again, you can put a Band-Aid at the position, just like they did with
for a year.
Not Nick, Brendel. Brendel was effectively a Band-Aid that turned out to be a Pro Bowl alternate. He may get the bag somewhere else. I don't know. That's another one.
He'll make more than $1 million. I guarantee you that.
I feel like we all kind of assume that Brendel's going to resign.
I
The
don't think
the
so.
wild card here is if again another team comes into the mix and gives him a market value contract for a
Mhm.
Pro Bowl alternate,
And somebody who knows the
you
Shanahan
might
offense.
right, you might have to wave Brendel goodbye
Yeah.
because this is a business, right? It's about you you can overpay for assets in some instances, but it's better to overpay for like a Debo Samuel than it is to like a Jake Brendel.
Right. So I see a lot of Jason Poe things. I think Jason Poe is a project, and I think he's somebody who's a little too small. I think if you're talking about like someone on this roster who's going to take over at center, it's Nick Sakel. Nick Sakel played in Nebraska. He's played in big games. That is somebody who is not a project in any way, right? Like that's a guy who can operate this offense. But I do think what you said is so true about Brendel. And when it comes to Brendel, you know, when you think about how many offenses are running some sort of Shanahan variation, if they're not just out here running the same thing, how do you not look at Jake Brendel and say, man, they got you for $1 million last year. We can sign you for $6 million this year. And that's not even really going to hamper us in any way. So yeah, Brendel, I think, is going to get signed, somewhere else. And I do love the point that you brought up. Like, if you lose Mike McGlinchey, right? There's no clear upgrade in free agency. By the way, I'm tired of everybody with the anybody can be an upgrade. I don't want to hear that. If you're talking about value for your money, then you're talking about something completely different. If you're talking about what you can get from Colton McKivitz for $1 million, that is value, the same way that you got from Jake Brendel. But what the 49ers would have to do is not invest that money back into the offensive line, is go out and get Deron Payne. Go out and sign another edge rusher. Go out and really make this defense, which is stout, even better because you're going to need it. Your offense may slip a bit, especially when we don't know what's going to go on with the quarterback position. It may slip, especially in pass protection and things like that. So what do? You don't necessarily just throw the money right back into it because there's nobody that you can throw it into, right? That is an upgrade, but you make your defense even better. Take that money that you were going to give to Mike McGlinchey. You're going to lose that money on Mike McGlinchey, Jimmy Ward, Manuel Mosley might price himself out of here. There's a lot of ways for you to go ahead and add on to your defense. If the 49ers want to offset the loss on offense in terms of what Mike McGlinchey is, then go ahead and invest that money back in the defense. Make your defense better. Go out there and look at Hargrove. Go out there and go after Deron Payne. Go look at Zach Allen. Really, really invest in his defensive line. That can be, and give Nick Bosa some sort of like help at the end of the year because the guy was fighting for his life. He gave it all. So again, if you lose Mike McGlinchey and you get Deron Payne, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Just because one, Deron Payne's going to be around for a while, and your defense can offset the loss that'll happen on your offense. Your offense is still going to be able to score points. It's just not going to be as effective on a pass pro side, which we don't know. Colton McKivitz might come in and be an upgrade somehow. But if you're going to lose something on the offensive side, then you double down on the defense and you do what you've been doing and invest in the trenches and draft someone.
100%. And when you go out and you get a Christian McCaffrey, that allows you to get the ball out of your hands very quickly. So, you know, this team already isn't a drop back passing team. They are predicated on getting the ball out on rhythm, on time, and getting it out quickly. And Kyle schemes that open. So as long as Kyle has a quarterback who can do that, you don't need a guy who can pass block for 3+ seconds. Like you really need a guy who can just get his hand, get in phase and make it a little muddy. Again, in an ideal world, you want him to be able to be a Trent Williams and be able to pass block anyone, all the Micah Parsons, all the Max Crosbys of the world. But that's just not where it is. It's not where the league is with NFL offensive line talent. So you got to make work what you have. And Colton McKivitz can work. We saw it. Go back to 2021 when Trent Williams couldn't play.
Win it all game. He had to play left tackle
against Von Miller and Leonard Floyd, and he did a hell of a job. And that is enough confidence to be like, we can give him a crack at this for next year. And again, it's a value conversation. This is a big brain conversation. This isn't build a team in Madden conversation. Right. This is like, we're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of people who are balancing a cap and like contracts while trying to build a team. It's not just as simple of we want this player, put him here. We want that player, put him here. Because if it was that, we'd go gangbusters and we'd build the dopest team imaginable.
And that's the thing is investing money into something that is now a loss just because you believe you have to, as opposed to building the best roster possible, is when you get yourself into trouble. I don't want to talk about this because I do feel like it's still unwritten, but like trading DeForest Buckner and then just go ahead and drafting Javon Kinlaw is probably your case number one study of like, I see the thought process, I see the logic. You wanna put somebody right in that spot, but you could have went many directions and made your team a little bit better. Unfortunately, Javon Kinlaw, I can't assess Javon Kinlaw if he's not on the field. That's it. And that's the only thing that I can say at this point. So again, roster building isn't, we lost the right tackle, let's just throw money at whoever the next right tackle is out there and just invest in that. No, it's you say, well, we've got somebody in our building that we feel like can be adequate. We have a coach that will play to his strengths and not put him in spots where he's going to be bad and understands that when he's game planning. And you know what? Take that money and go give it to Daron Payne. Take that money and go give it to somebody who can really, really help on the other side of the ball. You have to build the roster to the best possible place. You can't replace right tackle with right tackle, center with center, this with that. Like that doesn't necessarily work, and it doesn't correlate to success.
And especially with a position like defensive line, you don't need a guy who's going to play 80, 90, even 100% of the snaps like an offensive line. You can literally make up the defensive tackle position. Let's just say let's look at a zero tech. You could have effectively 3 to 4 guys rotating in to make up the body of work that you could effectively envision out of one player, right? Like the defense is so much different, especially defensive line, because even Bosa rotates. Bosa doesn't play 100% of the snaps.
No.
He will rotate. He will get plays off. So, like, when you're looking at defensive line, yeah, you want a guy out there who can play 75% of the snaps and be largely effective doing that. But there's also a way where you can put a core of guys together that can, again, you have Hassan Ridgeway in on base downs, and you bring in Omenahue over the guard on pass rushing downs, and you've effectively, it's multiple players, but you kind of are able to attack the things you want to attack if you just have your rotations on point. So again, like I understood the logic too behind trading DeForest, hoping you're hitting on Kinlaw. But again, you're also seeing the downside of filling a need opposed to just going straight up BPA. And that's what the 49ers have done historically. They draft for need. And that sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss. And when they miss, it hurts really bad because it's a Trey Sermon, it's a Joe Williams, it's you name it. They're kind of drafting for need opposed to best player available, and it kind of messes things up a little bit.
So, Brad, I think the best way to put it is this: you look at the group of players that could be in exodus right now at this point, right? McGlinchey, Jimmy Ward, and let's just say, God forbid, like Emmanuel Mosley, right? Mm-hmm. Who I think that there's a better chance for him to come back because he has to prove it off the ACL. But Spotrac has him right now at like 16 million market value.
16.6. We were doing our show and we pulled it up and I was like,
I wrote my article about it, and I'm like, if he's getting 16 M's a year, then that's it. Like, right? He's out of here.
Hi,
right?
My friend, I love you so much, but 16.6, that ain't gonna cut it, man.
So yeah, that's it, and he deserves it, right? Because I think the world of him, man. But I do think that there is a world where he probably has to take another 1-year deal, prove that he can stay healthy, and then hit the market again. And then while the cap is increased, probably get a little bit more. That contract of 16.6 million would put him as the 9th highest paid cornerback in the league. Right. I don't think you can really argue that he hasn't been in the top 15 range. Right, 100%. So look, let's just say McGlinchey, Ward, Mosley. Now you have to look at yourself and say, what do you prefer? McGlinchey, Ward, and Mosley. And let's put this out there. Ward is 31. Tashawn Gibson's 31. Tashawn Gibson's talking about retiring at 31, and Jimmy Ward's about to get paid. Jimmy Ward is market value is $7.7 million. And Tashawn Gibson made $1.1 million, and he had a phenomenal year as a free safety. Mm-hmm. And then you also have to remember Steve Wilkes is a big DB guy. Mm-hmm. So you lose McGlinchey, you lose Ward, you lose Mosley. But you get Daron Payne, You get let's see who you get Zach Allen, who can play on defensive end, like I said, and you bring in another cornerback, someone who can help. And close your ears, 49ers fans. I know you just watched the Super Bowl. I know you just watched it. But James Bradbury would not be a problem with the 49ers.
Trash.
Yeah, like
Trash.
trash. Like I get it, guys. You have the moment right now and everything, and you're talking about like what you thought you saw, whatever. Fine. But my point is this: getting value out of your free safety, which is a $7.7 million spot for $1 million, and then think about investing that money in a defensive line, investing in a guy who was the second team All-Pro, who will have another guy who can create problems up front for him, and he won't have to cover as long. Like, you are literally looking at what do you prefer at this point. And I do think that there isn't necessarily a reason where, you lose a right tackle, you got to get a right tackle. Lose a cornerback, you got to get a cornerback. I do think that roster building, and this is the hard part, and this is why we're not general managers, and that's why general managers who can build rosters, shout out to Howie Roseman, shout out to John Lynch, all the guys that build these rosters to this way, they build it out with the best possible talent. So this is the question you have to ask yourself. Are you comfortable losing McGlinchey, Mosley, and Ward? I don't think Mosley, I'm just throwing him in there. But if you're getting Deron Payne and you're getting a Zach Allen and a Bradbury that can help your defense and you can offset that loss, do you really lose when you think about the money that you're going to be investing, which might be similar?
I really don't think so, because I think Colton McKivitz is close enough to get the job done, right? So you're getting cheaper, which allows you to allocate those assets to a Deron Payne. If you're losing Jimmy Ward, who isn't getting any younger, although we love him, fan favorite, all that good stuff, you also have a young Samuel Womack, who we thought probably could have been the starting nickel this year. Okay, he learns behind Jimmy Ward and whatever. Now he's going to be coming in as a sophomore, has an opportunity to take over that role for cheap. You give him that opportunity, and again, to get that return on investment. If you have a Samuel Womack playing in the nickel, which again, it's not every
or
snap.
Lenore.
He's not playing at 100%. He's not playing 100% of the snaps. We saw it. It was Azeez and Jimmy Ward constantly rotating through base and nickel packages. They're not on the field at the same time. So you have to be smart with the money that you're paying. You have to think about snap percentages. How often are we going to play this guy? Does it make sense to allocate this much funds? Like, to an offensive lineman, I'm to the moon. Pay offensive linemen. They play 100% of the snaps. They don't rotate. But again, at a certain level.
Tell that to Spencer Burford. Resign Daniel Brunskill, by the way.
I've never seen anything like that.
Resign Daniel Brunskill, by the way. Like, that's my thing too. Is like is again with this offensive line. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It got me like thinking about Daniel Brunskill. Daniel Brunskill made $2.5 million last year. And he is literally the utility man off the bench in baseball. He can play center, guard, tackle, whatever you want. Who has that sort of luxury? You pay him a little bit more, you keep him there, and if McKivitz doesn't work out for whatever reason, you have this fallback option, which is Daniel Brunskill, which I feel a lot of people just overlook because of, he plays here and there. But that's invaluable what Daniel Brunskill brings. And that gives you a safety blanket to try whatever it is that you want, because there's a guy who can step in at any point to play any position.
I feel like it's a situation where it's one or the other. The 49ers are either keeping Brendel and letting Brunskill walk, or Brendel gets paid somewhere else and they keep Brunskill on a more affordable deal, and he could effectively be this, at least in a competition, because as we know, he was in competition last year to be the starting center, but we also know he can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. Worst case scenario, he's the 6th man. Best case scenario, he's starting at center. So I agree. I like that. And I really hadn't wrapped my head around too much the idea of Brendel signing elsewhere. But I think if Brendel does sign elsewhere, that makes Brunskill that much more valuable to come back and potentially be at least in competition with Zakel or Poe for the center, maybe even a rookie. But again, we know what Brunskill is. We know what he's capable of, and we know it's good enough to be able to run behind and pass behind.
And look at us, man. We thought that we weren't going to have much to talk about. Brad got on before the stream, and he was just like, "Oh, this is going to be a quick one." No, 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 no. There's a lot to sift through. Look again. I think about when I look around the league, and I look at everybody's roster. There's nobody on their roster, anybody's roster, that has someone who can play every single position on the offensive line and give you value. And I do think that there is something to the whole idea of having someone in a pinch, right? Aaron Banks goes down in Vegas. No problem. Brunskill guard. Go, get in there. You and Burford. You know what? Burford's struggling a little bit early in the game. No problem. Get in there, and you're cold. Get in there and do that. You need a right tackle. He's injured. Go, no problem. Go get it, Brunskill. Like, there's something to the idea of having Brunskill around that I think is more valuable than bringing back Brendel, when you can get similar production, in my opinion, from Nick Zakelj. And if, God forbid, Nick Zakelj doesn't work out, you got Brunskill in your back pocket. So for me, I just think that that's the move at this point. When you start to think about how many teams run Shanahan's offense, how many teams are borrowing things that aren't just straight up running Shanahan's offense, it's almost a slam dunk that Brendel's going to be looked at as a guy who can get a bag, man. I mean, Tom Compton, for God's sakes, was about to be out of the league and got signed again to be with Denver. Like, Kyle Shanahan can do things to get guys paid. Again, I felt like that was more of a Band-Aid, but I think that Daniel Brunskill is too invaluable to let go.
Yeah, and again, it's just going to be interesting. What is his market value, and do the 49ers feel like it's cost prohibitive to bring him back? So it's going to be really interesting to see. I do want Emmanuel Mosley. I'm okay if Jimmy Ward goes. I'm okay if Mike McGlinchey goes. I've already wrapped my head around it. I feel it's coming, but we were talking about it, like, if I could get Emmanuel Mosley 6 to 8 range, ideal, max 10, 16, I can't do that.
No, that's too much.
I think we can do
but
that.
He deserves it. You just can't do it as the 49ers.
100%. And again, we are balancing a book here. It's not just building my team and there's a, like, that's why Parag, like, we don't really know what he does, but my goodness, he does something. He cooks those books like crazy, and he might be hard to negotiate with, but there's a method to his madness from the 49ers side of things. He knows how to pull these levers to create cap space like that. I'll never forget when we went into the offseason, I think, what was it, the 2021 offseason, we needed to sign Trent Williams. We need to sign Kyle Juszczyk. We needed to sign all these other players, just our own guys. Not only did Trent Williams get paid as the highest paid tackle, Juszczyk as the highest paid fullback, we signed Alex Mack. We added additional guys, and we had more cap space at the end of free agency. That was the moment where I was like, I'm done trying to, like, be this, like, they only have this much dollars. How do we fit into this much dollars? Like, I think we're already seeing it on Twitter. Like, Parag, with a couple key restructures,
16 million, right, for Trent?
30, 40, 50, 60 million across a couple players just like that. And yes, it pushes the ball downhill, but
don't discount
trying to win now.
And don't discount the fact that the quarterback room is going to be the cheapest in the league, and you have, like, the highest potential when it comes to all that. So yeah, like, I'm done with that as well too at this point, right? But that's the thing, is, like, you restructure Trent, that's 16 M's right there, like, for you, right? You're clearing money off the books with Jimmy Garoppolo being gone, and Mike McGlinchey's about to go, and Jimmy. So the numbers right now aren't exactly what they are. And again, I don't try to get into that. I stay away from talking to salary cap. I'd say I stay away from all that just because I hate math. And there are people that are far smarter than I am that can do those things. But again, you look at certain teams, right? And you're just like, how on earth do they continue to do it? Well, there's a Parag for every team, basically, that does all those things, that can move things around. So again, the only way that I see Mike McGlinchey coming back is if Mike McGlinchey says, you know what, man, I'm going to turn down this 16 M's and I'm going to take 11, just because I want to be back. Jimmy Ward, it feels like he said his goodbyes, right? Azeez, I think, is going to Houston. Mosley's going to boil down to what his market looks like and what the 49ers are willing to invest. Sounds like the 49ers want to get that done. That's something that's at the forefront. Marcelino McCrary, Ball is going to probably, like, slide right into Azeez's role again. So again, There's always a plan for when guys leave. Laken Tomlinson leaves, cool. Aaron Banks gets slid in there. You know what? McGlinchey leaves, okay, we're gonna try McKivitz. Like there's always a plan for someone, and there's always a plan with this roster and how they build it. So we may have issues with the way that they go about like drafting players or what players they draft, but I don't think you can have an issue with the way that this team continues to find talent, get value, bang for their buck. And you're talking about guys like Jake Brendel for $1 million who played 20 games, 14 pressures, allowed 1 sack in 20 games. That is incredible for a starting center at $1 million. So again, trust the process, trust the front office. We may not understand it all, but you'll get it in a little bit as long as they continue to evaluate the way that they have.
Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu. Do they resign?
Omenihu's back, I think. I think Omenihu comes back. I think Ebukam walks. I do think that they're looking for a jump with Drake Jackson. You heard Kyle talk at the end of the year about he didn't have enough juice at the end of the year. I do think they're looking to him to improve. He's going to hit the weight room. That was my knock. When we I understood what he was going to be as a pass rusher. I don't think that's the problem. It's one, you've got to win in different ways as pass rushing, right? Like, because you have the finesse stuff, you got to be a little bit meaner, but you got to be better in run defense. All that stuff comes from beefing up in the weight room, and that seemed to bear itself out at the end of the year. So that was my knock on him. But I understand the vision, and I do think they're counting on him to take that leap. They just need a little bit more from DT. That's it. If they can get a DT who can get in there with Eric Armstead and be havoc in there, that's why I want Deron Payne. Deron Payne and Eric Armstead, God help them.
They need someone who can acquire double teams. That's literally what they.
That's it.
And more from that, even better. But at minimum, they need someone in that A gap to take on doubles so that they can stuff gaps and they can let their linebackers run free and let their edges run free and just can't slide everything towards Bosa. They need to be able to create more, I think, diversity up front on that defensive line.
I know we joke about it, but they need to rebuild in the trenches. Again, they need to revisit the trenches and continue to build there. Like
people get really upset about that, right?
Again, invest in the defensive line. Yes, again and again and again. Again and again and again, invest. And whether that's free agency, whether that's draft, every single time. This team has shown you they're going to invest in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Why would they change now? Now, this year, we want them to do something a little bit out of the ordinary, which is not find a bargain-based guy that you can accentuate the traits, right? Like Zach Allen's not a bargain-based guy. Deron Payne's not a bargain-based guy. But if you're going to invest in the trenches, you have to look at the market, look what's available, and put your money in the right places. And they're not going to change that. So this is the part where everybody's just like, well, draft. Draft don't start to the third round. And we know the hit rate in the third round. Just because the 49ers are very good in the third round doesn't mean that you want to start there. Hopefully the 49ers maybe package some of those third-round comp picks and move up into the second if they identify a guy.
I don't think they were allowed to trade last year. Hopefully Jed said, okay, we'll let you guys trade this year.
Yeah,
I think Jed was like, nah, you guys traded for at least 2 years with that trade to get Trey. They're like, he's like,
so maybe look, but if they identify a guy that is a difference maker right away, that we're looking like Drake Jackson fell into the 49ers lap. I can't believe that he stayed around that long. And I think we still realize that and when I say get into the weight room, I mean like he needs to put on weight.
He's a raw player.
And he just needs to put on a little bit more weight so he can be better in run defense. But again, if you have seen a history of how this team builds, right? Why would that change? The only thing that's going to change now is it may not happen in the draft. You may have to spend money that you wanted to allocate to Mike McGlinchey, Jimmy Ward, those guys, and spend it on Deron Payne. But it's a great investment. Deron Payne's 26 years old, and he's a stud, and he's going to be around for years next to Eric Armstead. So again, offset your losses on the offensive side by fortifying your defense and just stick to what you've been doing, which is building the trenches.
Yep, 100%. So I agree. I think we're on the same page with that, like with how they really got to shift some things around and they have to move off some guys to be able to get other guys. And I think that's going to be all right. I think we're definitely looking at a retool. I don't know if it's a rebuild. It definitely feels like more of just kind of changing at certain positions, supplementing here, supplementing there. it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle the draft too. Like kind of like what you're talking about. I don't see them trading into the first, but
second.
I could see them trading into not the top of the second, but
back of the second,
mid second, right around there. If again, a situation where a player that they have identified, I'm dreaming of a Will McDonald. That's not going to happen. He's going to be a first-round draft pick.
Oh, I see you. I see you like throwing it out there. Look, I'm all about manifesting. I mean, it didn't work for me. I had been manifesting Rihanna for years and years and years, and another New York guy took her. So I mean, look, it's just
I was manifesting Abe Lucas. That did not work at all. In fact, it worked out for the Seahawks very well. But there are going to be players that are going to be available. Like you just got to get the right ones. That's it. Like
you know where you get to evaluate them, right?
Where?
I get to see you in almost like 10, 11 days at the combine. Ooh, my goodness. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Now, Brad, because we're getting to her like an hour and a half. And, I hear Avery in the background and she's about to come over here and start like asking me for it. Yeah. But I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah.
Does Kyle Shanahan poke his head out at the combine this year as opposed to different years? Because he doesn't usually show up. It's John Lynch. You see Adam Peters walking around. No, he was not there. Oh, there it is. I told you. My alarm's just going off. Look, you want to read the book? You want to read what? You want to read Pete the Cat?
Yes.
Okay, well, when I'm done, baby, we'll repeat the cat, okay? Okay. So yes, does John Lynch show up? Yeah, does John Lynch show up? I mean, John Lynch will show up. Does Kyle Shanahan show up at the combine, which I'll see you?
I don't know. That's a good question. He doesn't strike me as a guy that really likes to be out in the front of everything.
I don't know, man. He might be at that steakhouse. We grabbing a drink. We can start ear hustling. Be like, what's up, coach? Well, I'll be like, what's up, coach? What's going on? You know me, right? Oh, you're that guy with that weird slogan. Yeah. All right, yeah, get him out of here. Kick his ass out.
I hope he does show up. That would be legit. But yeah, that's what combine's coming up. That's the next event on the NFL calendar.
10 days away. 10 days away we'll be in 10 days away we'll be in Indianapolis. I can't wait, man. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to give you a good old like man hug. And then just evaluate some prospects so I can learn a little bit more. It's dig into draft season. Okay, cool. Yep. Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat trying to get watched.
Definitely time for Pete the Cat. This again, we were talking. I was like, I don't know. This is probably gonna be a short episode today.
You want to read it? Okay, baby.
Well, we're gonna let Jason get out of here so he can go read the cat and spend some quality time with Averly and do all that good stuff. But appreciate you as always. Shout out to all the chat for tapping in. Again, make sure you're subbing to both channels. I'm sure you guys are probably subbing. But it's definitely Pete the Cat.
It's definitely time. Yeah, and she's singing the read the book part, right, baby? You want to repeat the cat? Okay, baby. I love you. Thank you guys again. Sorry, I just do it. It was too long. Like we were getting like an hour 20, and I'm like, it really hasn't come over here. I was like, I was just waiting for it.
Started to get into the juicy like off-season like free agency stuff, and I think both of us get hyped up on that.
Come here.
Hi, Averly.
Come here. You want to say hi? No, I'm not. All right, Brad. Much love, buddy. Can't wait to see you at the combine, man. And look, 49ers fans, see this offseason talk that has to do with outside of the quarterback position. And there's a lot of stuff that that needs to be figured out. This team is not going to give up its window, and they shouldn't. If Kyle Shanahan is as pissed as he was at that press conference, imagine us. And he needs to be that mad. You know what you do with that anger? You rebuild this roster, you go make your splash moves, and you go get it done. Don't get mad, just get better. Don't be sorry, just be better. That's it.
Yep. And that's what we try to do every day. Try to get better. And shout out Pete the Cat. It's time to get things popping off. All right. Shout out to SDS, man. Appreciate you guys. Shout out Averly. Shout out Pete the Cat.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Averly.
Hi.
All right. We're going to get out. She's ready.
She's ready.
All right. Appreciate you guys. We're out of here. Peace. That's Jason Aponte. I'm Brad Graham. We're going to get into it all right now.